everyone, it's Jamie, I'm back, and I'm here to give you can't see them, but so many recommendations, specifically for LGBTQ plus books, because Pride Month's coming up, guys, and what else are you gonna do with your time in these uncertain times? So, because I was thinking about it, because I've read a lot of LGBT plus books. My Goodreads shelf that is just LGBT, I think, has 277 last time I checked, which will probably go up by the time I upload this. Obviously, not all of those are good, but a lot of them I really love, and a lot of them I own too. So this pile here that you cannot see, but the reason why I'm kind of at the very corner of this video right now is because it's literally the only way I can sit down, because I didn't plan this out very well, and my books are all just in a pile here. That also, I don't know if you can notice, but my bookshelves, particularly those two, a bit ravaged, because those are my favourite shelves. So like half of my books from that shelf are missing. A few things first though. Of all the books I'm going to highlight in this video, it will only be the ones I physically own. With the exception of one, but it's a library book, so I have it in my possession. Because otherwise that's too many books. So I'm going to quickly, rapid fire, tell you a bunch of LGBTQ+ books that I love that I don't own. And I'm just going to put their picture up here on the screen. I'm just going to lightning around it. They're all great. I think you can go to my Goodreads. I have reviews for most if not all of these. So let's go. Of Roses and Kings. Check please. If It Makes You Happy. The Wildstorm. We Set the Dark on Fire. Let's Talk About Love. Peter Darling. Nimona. P.S. I Missed You. The Heart's Invisible Furies. Heavy Vinyl. Slam. Coffee Boy. How to Be a Normal Person. Girl Made of Stars. Ramona Blue. Know Your Psychic. The Prince and the Dressmaker. A Darkly Beating Heart. The Art of Escaping. When the Moon Was Ours. Ivy Aberdeen's Led to the World. Daughter of the Burning City. The Backstage Is More Than This. And Midnighter. There we go. That's like at least 20. So that 20 recommendations out of the way. I would recommend all of these. My reviews will have specifics in terms of representation. I'll go into like specific representation for all the books here, but I just gave you 20 books. I'm not gonna give you the laydown on all of them. I think they're all great. So now let's get started on all of these. Truly no particular order. I'll probably group author, but that'll be about it. I'll just start from this side. So we've got a bunch of graphic novels and comics here. The first one is The True Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill, which is obviously my library book. Katie O'Neill also did Princess Ever After. Is that the name of it? I think that's what it's called, as well as Apricorn Cove. There's also a sequel to this called The True Dragon Festival, I think it is. There's going to be a third one. I haven't read any of those. But basically, this is a fantasy where there are tea dragons, and it's about these cute girls who are, I don't know. It doesn't have a plot. It's just about these girls and tea dragons and these mentors, and both of these girls are like hinted at maybe having a romance, and then the mentor has a husband who's disabled, and it's wonderful. It's very sweet. It's very short. It's like a picture book, basically. The art is very lovely. I'm a very big fan of Katie O'Neill's art. I plan to read Tea Dragon Festival, whatever it's called, whenever I can. Would highly recommend. Next, we have Spell on Wheels by Kate Leth, Megan Levins, and Marissa Louise. This video is very unplanned, so it's gonna be a mess. This is about 3 women who are all witches and their friends. I don't know if they're technically a coven. Unclear on what. I don't know how many you need to be a coven. But basically, her ex-boyfriend, I'm pretty sure it's her. I shouldn't be mixing it like this. I read this like a year ago. But one of their ex-boyfriends had decided to get revenge on them, and has decided to steal a bunch of their witchy things, and they have to go on like a road trip for it, and it's very nice. One of the girls is queer. She has like a little flirtation, and then later in the book you meet like 2 queer older women. It's wonderful. It's delightful. Very short, obviously. Graphic novel again. Art, very nice. It's also just like 1 volume, so there's just the 5 issues and then there's nothing else, which is good because it means it's easy to read and quick to get through, but sad because it is really good. So next, we have Love is Love. There's a subtitle. There's a subtitle to this. A comic book anthology to benefit LGBTQA charities. So basically, after the Orlando Pulse shooting, well, it's not DC, but no, IDW Publishing, which is a lot of DC, decided to curate this, and it's basically just, it does a specific, yeah, organized by Mark Draco, who has written like Supergirl and I think Batwoman and stuff. Big DC writer. And it's basically just these little vignettes kind of about different topics, but all having to do with LGBTQ plus topics. There's an introduction by Patty Jenkins. Some of them are just like these little original stories, whereas let me find one that's more specific. There's a Riverdale one, because I don't know the rights with all this stuff. Oh, here's one of my favorites. You also have like actual DC characters, like there's Midnight and Apollo, my personal favorites, and it's very nice. The art's really beautiful. If you buy it, I'm assuming it's still money's still being donated. At the time, basically all the profits being donated to various causes. But yeah, there's like you got things about Harley Quinn and Batwoman and just all these other great queer characters, mostly DC. There's like a Harry Potter thing in here. As I said, there's an Archie thing. A lot of it is also just original stuff. It's really beautiful, and I would highly recommend. We have Young Avengers, one of my favorite comic series. The Wildstorm has overtaken it, but I don't own that. I would still recommend that. Good queer rep. This is it's like the second version of it. Basically, Young Avengers came about in 2005. And that was after Avengers Disassembled, House of M, all that kind of nonsense. And it's basically where the Avengers are in kind of shambles. A bunch of them are dead now, or they're retired. So then this group of plucky kids who all are kind of similar to the Avengers in different ways decide to form the Young Avengers. This is way after that, because this is just my preferred one. I own all of it. But you've got a bunch of great characters here. Quinn specifically. This team that they have in this version, this like collection of it, is almost entirely queer. You've got Billy and Teddy, who are both gay. They're in love. It's wonderful. They low-key they're already engaged by the time they're in this one. They're in all that stuff. They're in like New Avengers and all that. Then you've got America Chavez, who is a lesbian icon. She's wonderful. I love her. She's got her own comic series. Then you have Nova, who is just kind of, he's an alien, very free will, and he's like, yeah, maybe, we don't really have, like, sexuality or whatever, like, we'll just kind of do whatever. And then you have Kid Loki, who is gender fluid and pansexual. They go a lot more into that in the series comes after this, Loki, Agent of Asgard. And then not featured on this cover, because he comes in later, is David, who is an ex-mutant, I guess X-Man. And he's bisexual. He says the word on page. It's very beautiful. Kate is the only supposedly straight one, but we all know the truth. It's a very lovely series. It's also got really good reputation for depression and mental health, as well as the team has a lot of people of color on it. Billy is Jewish. It's just a really wonderful series, and would highly recommend. Here we have Queens of Geek by Jen Wild. This is a very short, very cute story of 3 friends who are going to a convention in America. They're Australian. Charlie has been, she's a vlogger and she's an actress promoting this big movie that she's just done. So she invited her 2 friends to come along with her. One of them, Taylor, she is autistic and she's planning on entering this cosplay competition. And then those are the 2 perspectives. And then there's also Jamie, who is their other friend, I know. And he and Taylor kind of a thing for each other, and Charlie also meets a vlogger there who she has had a crush on for a long time. She's a girl. Charlie is bisexual and Chinese Australian. And as I mentioned, Taylor is autistic. She's also plus size. And Jamie is Latino. And then Charlie's love interest, I'm pretty sure she's a lesbian. I don't remember if anything specifically said. But it's very sweet. It's very nice. I haven't read any of Jen Wild's other stuff, just because I haven't gone around to it yet. I know. In my defense, I have never seen a copy of it, because otherwise I would buy it immediately, because I did really love this. It's very sweet. It's very short. It takes place over literally just the weekend of the convention. If you like The Princess and the Fangirl, or just that's the Once Upon a Con series in general, because I'm currently reading Princess and the Fangirl, it's very good. You could dig this, I think. I think this is superior to that, I'm gonna be honest. Next, we have The Infinite Noise by Lauren Chip, and wow, the light does not love that cover. This is a spin-off, kind of companion more so to her podcast The Bright Sessions, which is one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to. Easily in my top 3, would definitely recommend that, especially if you want more of this, because this is it's relatively supplementary, but basically the pitch for The Bright Sessions is, what if the X-Men went to therapy? It's a world in which there's people with extraordinary powers, and they go to therapy specifically for that. And there's going to be a trilogy which are all about different characters in Bright Sessions. This one is specifically focused on Caleb, who is, atypical. Why did I forget the name for it? He's atypical. He is an empath. Means he can feel other people's emotions and impacts his own. And this starts with him starting to go to therapy with Dr. Bright, who is, the Bright Sessions. And basically he befriends this boy in his grade called Adam, and maybe starts to catch some feelings, and it's very sweet. Adam is gay, Caleb. There is another podcast about them specifically called The College Tapes, I think. I haven't actually listened to that one yet. I don't know, as of the whole Bright Session series in this book, he doesn't know what his actual sexuality is and doesn't label it. If you're interested in the Bright Session specifically, other queer characters in it is, why did I just forget everyone's names? Chloe is asexual and panromantic, I think. I'm forgetting, literally. Rose is a lesbian. Basically everyone's queer, like, Mark, that's it. Mark is bisexual. I don't know if it's ever actually said, but Sam is definitely meant to be interpreted as demisexual. Most of the main characters are somewhere on the spectrum of queerness. It's kind of wonderful. I'm explaining this so poorly, but explaining the Bright Sessions is hard. This book's really nice and really sweet, and it's just two teen boys falling in love, and look at the cover, it's so nice and pretty. Next, we have a little novella called Once Ghosted Twice Shy by Alyssa Cole. This is a spin-off novella for the Reluctance Royal series, which the first book is A Princess in Theory. Yes, A Princess in Theory. I read A Princess in Theory. It's very lovely. But this one follows the personal assistant of one of the main characters in that series, and her returning to New York and meeting the woman who broke her heart. And it's so lovely. Look at this cover. Look at this cover. Look at this cover. Look at how nice this is. Look how cute it is. These models are a couple, or at least were at the time. But it's so nice. It's just this story about two women just loving each other. And it's like a second chance romance. You get a bit of inkling from what happened to them in the first book. You don't have to read Princess Theory. I would recommend it because I think it's really good. But you could read this by itself, I think. I would recommend it because you get, like, more of the backstory and, like, you get to see, like, yeah, it's good, it's good. Next, I forgot to mention this up front. We're 13 minutes in now. But, I've decided to omit certain books that I do love that get talked about a lot. I'm not going to talk about Six of Crows. I'm not going to talk about Carry On. I'm not going to talk about Sam vs. Homo Sapiens Agenda. I'm not going to talk about Aristotle and Dante. You've heard about all those before. You know they were the only queer book recommended at the start of booktube. You do not need me in the year of our Lord 2020 to tell you why Six of Crows is good. In saying that, The Dark Artifice is by Cassandra Clare. In my defense, I feel like people don't often talk about this specific series, and definitely not in regards to queerness. So this is the third series by Cassandra Clare in the Shadowhunter universe. It's fourth chronologically, though. Trying to sell people on the Shadowhunter Chronicles is so wild because you can't do it. You can't do it. It is my favorite series. I'm not a massive Infernal Devices fan. I haven't even read the third one yet. Do still in Chain of Gold. Don't get me wrong. I own all of her books. I'm insane. But basically, this is I can't explain this to you if you haven't read the other ones. It's very good though. You do have to read at least the Mortal Instruments. I think you could get away with not reading Infernal Devices. Or you could at least just read spoilers. Watch a spoiler vlog, you can do that. But in terms of specific queerness, first you have Ty, who is one of the Blackthorn siblings. The Blackthorns I don't remember how many, there's like a bunch of them. They're like one trap style. He is autistic and is most definitely queer. The series that comes after this, The Wicked Powers, which is going to start in a couple of years, is going to focus more on him, as well as two other characters, one of who is Kit, who is bi disaster. Love him. That's my headcanon. He has not been labelled, neither of them have, but they are definitely going to have a romance. It's going to be very lovely. But also, we have icons. Mark, Kieran, and Christina, who by the end of the series are in a polyamorous relationship. Mark and Kieran are both bisexual, and it's more of a case of Mark dating both of them, but Kieran and Christina, is also the most chef's kisses. Cassandra Clare did that and is an icon for it because it's... I will be talking, strangely, to be strangely specific, I will be talking about polyamorous bisexual fairies with a later recommendation. This is just so mainstream though, and I can't believe she actually did it. And we stan. And then there's also this woman for some reason. There's also Diana, who is a trans woman, and then there's just other, like, you have like Magnus and Alex show up in these. There are a bunch of other, like Helen and Aline, obviously icons. We love them. But those are like the main ones. This series is really good, guys. It's really good. I know that no one cares about the Shadowhunter Chronicles, but I do because I'm trash. Next, we have The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Toshki. This is a heist set in, give me the year, 1889 in Paris? I think it's Paris. It's definitely France. And it's just a heist, and it's this group of lovable rogues who are doing a heist. I love me a heist. Specific queerness though, there is a bisexual character in here who is also biracial. And then there is also another queer character who is unlabeled as of yet. They have a thing, but then the bi character also has a thing with another person, and I'm really hoping that goes the polyamory route. The second book in the series comes out sometime this year. I don't remember when. November? That seems too late. It comes out sometime this year. This is a really good book, and you should read it. And if I see you compare it to Six of Crows, I will drop kick you. Next, we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, a book I was reminded how much I love recently because I watched the movie Troy, which is bad, especially with what it does with Achilles and Patroclus. So this is, as I just said, it's Achilles and Patroclus from the Iliad, except most of it is not the Iliad. The Iliad is like this little section here. Most of it is just about their childhoods, them growing up together, them falling in love with each other. It's beautiful, the writing, wonderful. I guess I won't spoil what happens at the end. If you know anything about this sort of stuff, you know what happens. Read this, don't watch the movie Troy, in which they're cousins. They say it a lot in that movie, like, they really want you to know they are cousins. Like, in the first scene, it's mentioned about 5 times. It's very funny, honestly. Because that movie's a goddamn mess. But this book isn't. This book is very good. And no, I haven't read Cersei yet. I'm bad at reading, guys. Okay, let's talk about these 3 together, because they're all from the same author. You should read Alice Oseman's books, just generally. I don't have Solitaire here, because A, it's my least favourite of hers, although I do like it, but also the queer rap is less relevant to that book, it's more to the side. These ones, front and centre. Okay. First we have Heartstopper, which is a spin-off of Solitaire. It comes before it. It's also a webcomic, which I'm kind of behind on. 3 volumes are currently out. This is the first one. So in the book Solitaire you have Tori, and this follows Tori's brother, Charlie, and this boy called Nick, who he starts to maybe get some feelings for, and they most definitely do end up dating, which you know anyway, because they're dating in Solitaire. It's very beautiful, it's very light, it's very fluffy. It's going to get darker because in Solitaire, Charlie has developed a very serious eating disorder, and that's a lot of that book. And as this series goes on, you know, you get more of that. I think it's handled very well. Representation, Charlie is gay, Nick is bi, and then they also have friends, Tara and Darcy. I think they're both lesbians, and then you also have Ellie, who's the main character, she's trans, love of my life, her and Tao, oh, wonderful. And then you just have, like, little random people show up. Then we have Radio Silence, probably her best known book. This is about a teen girl who does fan art for a podcast, and then shit happens, and she gets a best friend and stuff. Go watch a Paperback Dreams video if you want a more succinct gushing about this. I'm sure that you can find something there. Representation, though, 4 out of the 5 main characters are queer, and it is wonderful. So, you have Frances, the main character. She is bisexual. Well, I don't know question that she is. Then you have Alan, who is the other main character, who also appears occasionally in Heartstopper, because he's a minor character in that. He is demisexual. And then you have Daniel, who is gay, who appears like once in Heartstopper, I think. He's a much more minor part of that. Who is gay. And then you have Karis, who shows up towards the end, who is a lesbian. The fifth character, Rain, is straight, as far as we know. The outdoorsman has said, yeah, I mean, she's probably queer too. It's very wonderful, it's very lovely, it's very hard-hitting, it's very beautiful. I do cry, and I do own 2 copies of it, because I wanted to get the matching copies. And then finally, you have my favorite outdoorsman book, Controversial Opinion. I Was Born for This, which is her most recent, for a few months, until anyone comes out. This one is about a teen girl called Angel, who is obsessed with this band called The Ark, who, to me, feel like a kind of 5-sauce-esque band, just personally. But, you know, boy band. And she's finally meeting her internet best friend in real life, because they're going to go to the Ark's concert. And then we're also following Jimmy, who is the frontman, I think is how to describe it, for the Ark. And representation-wise, Jimmy is trans and queer. Another one of his bandmates, Lister, is bisexual. His other bandmate, Rowan, has a girlfriend called Bliss, who is bisexual. And then Angel's sexuality, like, never comes into play. I personally, this is not representation in the book. I personally read her somewhere in the Ace or Aries spectrum. But if you want to read a book by Alice Oseman, in which a character is on the Ace or Aries spectrum, pre-order Loveless, which is my most anticipated book of the year, which is about an Arrow Ace girl realizes that she's Arrow Ace, and there's also other side sapphic characters, and I'm really hoping that the other 2 female leads get together, because that'll be very cute. But yeah, you should read Alice Oseman. Okay, oh, my back's on hurt. Okay, next we have Leah and the Offbeat with Becky Albertalli, my favourite Becky Albertalli. Back to my hot takes. My favorite books for popular authors are never the ones that expect to be. This is the second in the Creekwood series, which is getting a little novella, which I'm very excited for. Should pre-order that. This isn't the place to talk about that. This is about Leah, one of Simon's best friends, and it's their senior year, and she's just trying to live life, you know, and maybe she's falling in love with someone. She's got, like, drumming stuff. Her relationship with her mom is very fraught. This is a book that a lot of people don't like, and I think they are wrong. I think there are unrealistic and very different expectations on female main characters than male ones, because a lot of the complaints about Leah are ones that you could also say about Simon. Getting off with that though, Leah is a fat bisexual woman. Her love interest is a black bisexual girl, and then there's obviously Simon, who is gay. And do I have to keep this under wraps? Bram. It's Bram. Bram is blue. That book came out in like 2015. If you don't know by now, get over it. That's very mean. The movie came out 2 years ago. You probably know. Bram, who is also gay and black and Jewish. You also have more minor characters in here. You get cameos from characters from the episode of Unrequited, which is very fun. There's also at least one minor character in here who uses they, them pronouns, which was cool. This book is wonderful, and people are stupid. Next we have The Absolutes by John Boyne. This is adult literary fiction, I guess? It's historical fiction. But it is about this man who, it is, what year? 1919. And he is meeting this woman who he's never met before, but he has this kind of connection with. And because he has to tell her things that happened during the war. Whilst this is all going on, we have major flashbacks, that's most of the book, to 1917, and this man, and what happened. Somewhat spoilers, although the kind of twist at the end is very good. Part of what he has to tell her is that he had a relationship with her brother in the war. This is so good. It's very upsetting in very good ways. It has my favorite final paragraph in, like, all of books, basically. Is it a paragraph? Yeah, this, like, 2 pages, like, this entire, like, the final line, I think is one of the best final lines ever. I love this book so much. I should reread it. It's very good, and it's very sad, like, don't get me wrong. It's about queer men in 1917 and 1919 in the art, like, it's sad. Like, if you don't want sadness, don't read it, but otherwise I think you should. Next we have Red, White, and Royal Blue, Becky's McQuiston, which is taking the book world by storm, as it should. This is a new adult romance between the first son of the United States and a prince from England/Wales. It's very unclear. I don't understand how the royals work. They have a rivalry, but then there's a bit of a fiasco at the royal wedding, involving both of them, and they're both their countries are basically like, ooh, cool off a bit. You guys need to pretend to become friends now, so that we don't have like bad international relations. And you know, if they fall in love, that's just their business. This is very wonderful. Love it very much. Alex over here is bisexual and Mexican. And then Henry over here is gay, and then there's also Nora, who's the main character, who's bisexual. There are a bunch of other queer characters. There's a pretty major trans character. It's also, in these politically fraught times, it is wonderful escapism, I must say. This is basically, what if a cool lady won in 2016? And this book is actually set in 2020, so like, would recommend, because then you'll be like, oh, all these different events are happening. This is nice. Like, we're currently in like the midway point of the book, I think. Oh yeah, bookmark in here. I forgot that I started to reread this. It's so good. So good. Also very pretty. Also, Case McQuiston has done book coming out next year, so pre-order that. But anyway. Next, we have Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour. Woof. This lighting does not like this one at all. This is about a teen girl who basically, her brother is going off to do something. I don't remember what. He's gone abroad for a while, and he basically entrusts her with his apartment, and his only thing is you must do something like extraordinary with it. And she gets this job being a like set designer on this very tiny like indie movie, and because that's like what she dreams of doing. This is a book that has lots to do with film, which I obviously vibe with very hard, but she is also having this, there's also this like big Hollywood mystery she's like wrapped up in, as well as this like beautiful little romance with another girl. I'm pretty sure both of them are gay. I don't know if it's ever actually said either way. This is very good. It is my Nina LaCour of choice. Not a big Gary K fan. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, not to pass too much. It's a masterpiece. If you somehow don't know the plot, I'm going to assume that I'm the only booktube you watch, in which case I'm flattered, also a bit worried. But basically, this is about Hollywood starlet Evelyn Hugo, who has been like Oscar nominated multiple times. She's like one of the most influential actresses ever, and all anyone will ever want to talk about is the fact that she's had 7 husbands over her life. And the book follows a journalist, this like real rookie journalist, who has been chosen to interview her, and Evelyn basically entrusts her to write her biography. And the book is structured, see through these tabs here, through all of her 7 husbands. And there's this big question of who was the great love of her life. Spoilers, it might have not been a man, because Evelyn is a bisexual icon. Lots of great queer friendship in him. Like WLW, MLM, Solidarity. Wonderful. Oh, do another chef's kiss. This book's great. I don't need to tell you that. You know it's great. It's wonderful. It's being adapted. It's gonna be great. I take a shot every time I say great. Jesus Christ. Okay. Another author. Read Kay Ancrum's books. She has 2 of them. They're both very good. First, we have The Wicker King, which is contemporary with like fantastical elements to it. This is about Jack and August, teen boys who are friends. And basically, why do I always forget which is which? I do love this book. I don't know. But basically, Jack begins having these hallucinations of this fantasy world, and August decides to go along with it and basically enable him. And it's very wonderful, and their relationship is so intense and so beautiful and gut-wrenching. And if you want more about their relationship, then maybe you should read The Weight of the Stars by Kay Ancrum, which is set in the future a little bit, and may or may not feature Jack and August as well as Rena, and they... Spoilers, I guess, but you know what? It's nice to know that things end up happy. They may or may not be in a polyamorous relationship with their child by the time The Way the Stars comes around. Not saying anything, but this follows 2 teen girls, Alexandria and Ryan, who both have this connection to space. Alexandria was left behind by her mother, who decided to go to space and basically just never came back. It was a one-way trip. And Ryan, whose parents are dead, and she cares for her 15-year-old brother and his child, whose baby, and she just longs to go to space. She feels this draw, kind of like what Alexandria's mother felt. They have a rocky beginning, which is a very funny joke if you've read the book. But they basically form like kind of a deal where they're like stargaze on Alexandria's roof, and then they slowly like come together. And this book is just full of like this wonderful little queer friend group. Ryan and Alexandria, I think, are both. Ryan is definitely a lesbian. Alexandria, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if she's ever actually given the label. Ryan's younger brother is bisexual. There's another member of their friend group who's also queer. The other two members definitely give off queer vibes. As I said, there may or may not be a cameo from Jack, August, and Rita in here, in which they are in a polyamorous relationship and raising a child together. Cannot confirm or deny. But it's beautiful. It's so goddamn beautiful. And K. Ancrum also has another book coming out next year, I think. That is a Peter Pan retelling where Peter Pan's a bit of a dick. We now have Into the Drown Deep by Myra Grant. We will talk about her later too, but she's on a different name with that one. This is a book about mermaids. Basically, 7 years ago, this book is set up in the future, but like 7 years ago, this kind of sci-fi channel kind of production crew, they do all these different things where they try to prove that Bigfoot and unicorns are real, and it's all fake, and it's really fun and schlocky. And they go to the Mariana Trench with a bunch of like actors and kind of media people to try to prove mermaids are real. And it goes kind of wrong. Everyone disappears, the boat is left stranded, and then this footage comes out that shows these strange mermaid-like creatures killing everyone on board, basically. And this book is set 7 years after that, where basically the company Imagine has decided they're going to put together a new crew to go there, but one that's actually full of scientists and people who are equipped to deal with this, and we have this wonderful ensemble cast of characters. I would say the two more or less like most major characters is Dr. Gillian Toth, I think her name is, who is this woman who is kind of considered this kind of, she's kind of on the outskirts of the scientific community because she does a lot of courses on mermaids. She strongly believes in mermaids. She has like university courses and stuff on it, and she like studies it. And her ex-husband, kind of, they have a complicated relationship, who works for Imagine, is basically like, we want you to come along, you're like the leading expert on mermaids. And the other main character is Tori, who is a marine scientist whose sister was one of the media people. She was like the face of the excursion from 7 years ago, and she wants to figure out what happened to her sister. And there's an ensemble cast of a whole host of other people who are great. There are these 3 siblings, 2 of who are twins and both deaf. There's this very psychopathic couple who just hunt whales and can't wait to kill a mermaid, and no joke, at several points in this book have sex on a bed covered in like weapons. It's hilarious. It's several times. It's very fun, which is a weird thing to say. I know. The new like big face media person is a queer autistic woman who like it's her first big job. And on that note, representation-wise, the big thing is that, as I said, we have, I think her name's Olivia, if I'm remembering correctly. Her and Tori, who is bisexual, have a little bit of a romance, and it's very nice. And, spoilers, I guess, there's no bury gays. There's definitely some burying. But no bury gays. This is a great book. It's very scary. I want James Wan to direct an adaptation of it so badly. Watch the trench scene from Aquaman if you've read this, and you'll like know exactly what I mean when I say I want him to direct it, because he would be so good at it. Maybe with a score by Ludwig Göransson. Also, while reading this, listen to the Venom score. It really slaps, and it really goes very well with it. Next, we have The Quiet at the End of the World by Lauren James. This is a soft sci-fi, I would say. If you like Children of Men, this is your vibe. Basically, this is where a while ago humanity just stopped being able to reproduce. It's a Children of Men comparison. And this is about the last two, like the 2 youngest people left on Earth, who are both, they're like 18, I think. They live in London with this tiny community of like a few hundred people who are like getting on in years, obviously. And they're trying to find a cure. And then things start happening, strange things where they kind of have to investigate the past. It's very beautiful. The boy, Shen, is Chinese. His family like went from China to London as kind of like a way to get used to together. And then the main character, Lowry, is bisexual. And throughout the book, Lowry, she finds, in like the subway, she finds this woman's purse, and she basically starts going through all of this woman's like her internet activity, like her Twitter and stuff like that, and starts to form this connection with this woman who is bisexual, and she ends up getting married to a trans man, and it is very beautiful, that entire like side story. It's very lovely. And yeah, it's soft, quiet sci-fi. It's beautiful. I love it so much. Lauren James is great. Read an unauthorized fan treatise online. That's also great. Next, Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. Lighting doesn't like this one either. Shock or shock. This is set on this tiny little island where like it's very atmospheric and moody and witchy. And about these two sisters called Georgina and doesn't say her sister's name. But basically, family witches, where like by the time they reach 18 or whatever, their witchy powers come in, and Georgina's a couple months away from being 18, and her powers still haven't kicked in. And then basically, her family owns this inn, and every summer there's this like famous bird there that's been alive for decades, like way longer than a bird should be alive for. And this summer, and like all these people come, it's where they get like 80% of their money is from just all these tourists coming to like check them out, and like these people become like family to them because they come every single year and there's such constants in their lives. And this year the bird has not shown up. And then Georgina also has a very sweet romance with another girl, and her best friend is asexual and aromantic, which is I think the first time I ever read about an Arrow-Ace character. It's very lovely. It's very dark and moody and deals with some very serious themes, particularly like rape. But it's also very good. It's also very short. Next, we have Wicked Lovely series by Will Smart, which is like one of my favorite series. I do need to reread it, I will admit. But I own the whole series. I love it. This is from, I think, 2007 is when this first book was published. Am I correct on that one? Yep, 2007, which I think makes it the oldest one. Oh, well, it's one of them. This is a YA fantasy series from back in the day about this teen girl called Ashlyn who, for whatever reason, can see fairies. Hang on, there's a thing in the back where it's like, Rule 3, never stare at invisible fairies. Rule 2, never speak to invisible fairies. Rule 1, don't ever attract their attention. And Ashlyn, of course, attracts the attention of the Summer King, Keenan, who sucks. He's the worst character in the series. Fuck him. Sorry for being so opinionated on that. And he thinks that she is his summer queen, and it's about that. The first book's rocky, but I think the rest of the series is genuinely great. There's a lot of like good court intrigue. Lots of good romance. Also, for a 2007 book, good stuff on consent and stuff. It's like a really good. I think I've bookmarked it. Yeah, there's a really good passage on it where like she basically thinks that where Keenan basically he sucks. He basically drugged her, and she doesn't know what happened. And then her other love interest Seth is like, that's not your fault. Like he's a shitty dude for doing that. Like even if you did something, it's not like you didn't give consent. Like that's sexual assault. For 2007, it's really progressive in that way. But also, I should have brought the second book because this is where it's more relevant. The second book called Ink Exchange isn't about Ashlyn. She's like the main character of the first, third, and fifth books. The second book, the main character is Leslie, one of her human friends. And basically in this book, one of Keenan's like guards is this dude called Niall, who's kind of weird. And he used to be part of the Dark Court, and there's a Dark King called Uriel. And in the second book, Leslie becomes connected to Uriel somehow. And long story short, Uriel and Niall used to have this very complicated relationship back in the day, both bisexual. And as the series goes on, it becomes more and more complicated. They start to kind of fall back in with each other, while also they end up in a polyamorous relationship with Leslie. There are 2 short stories about this. There's Mill Smart has a short story like fairy like short story collection, and there's 2 in there, I think, that are specifically about Niall, Uriel, and Leslie and like their relationship and how complicated their relationship is because she like cannot be around like she can't stand like the allure of certain like types of fairies because she's a human, and like it's really complicated. It's really good. I love this series. I think it's kind of amazing and underrated, and it's dated in some ways. I'm not saying it's perfect. This book came out in 2007, for Christ's sake. I think it's a lot better than people will ever give it credit for. Next, we have The Way with Children series by Sean McGuire. I'm holding up the 5th one because I only own books 1 and 5, and my sister is currently reading book 1, and I don't know where she put it. But basically, you've probably heard about this series. This is a series about children who fall through magical doorways and portholes and stuff, and basically how fucked up they are when they come back and realize that they're in the real world, which can just never live up to this perfect world they were in. So then their parents will send them to Eleanor West Home for Wayward Children. Every odd-numbered book is a continuous story, following a different main character, but it's all the same story of them being out of school and often uncovering a mystery of some kind. But then the even-numbered books are prequels, basically, so like the second book is a prequel about Jack and Jill, and the fourth book is a prequel about Lundy. Basically, every book has LGBTQ plus representation. The first one, the protagonist of that one, Nancy, is asexual, and it says so on page. And then there's also a main character called Cade, who is trans. He's Eleanor's nephew, I think. And then in that one, you also meet Jack, who is a lesbian, although you don't find that out, I don't think, until the second book, Among the Sticks and Bones. I've read this, I don't know why I'm questioning it. Yeah, Down Among the Sticks and Bones. And she has a romance with another woman, which is very lovely. Then in the third book, you have Cade again, you see Nancy, you just kind of continue to meet other queer people. In this book, there's good queer rep. The fourth one I don't think has any. That one's also my favourite, I will say. But just throughout the series, you have other main characters who are queer. You also have main characters who are fat and who are people of colour and who are Muslim. And yeah, it's a very diverse series. It's very lovely. All novellas, would highly recommend. Next, we have The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness, which is my favourite Patrick Ness book. I own 2 copies of it because I'm a crazy person. This is basically about the side characters in a superhero movie. This is about the normal teens who live in this town and that will just keep getting infested by vampires and these weird things, and I think it's kind of brilliant. Every chapter, there's like, they're called like the indie kids, I think, but every chapter starts with like what's happening with them. Can you see that? It's like chapter the first, in which the messenger of the immortals arrives in a surprising shape looking for a permanent vessel, and after being chased by her through the woods, indie kid Finn meets his final fate. And it's just like that. There's like 3 kids called Satchel because they all have weird names, and it's just where like, and like chapter the second, in which indie kid Satchel writes a poem and her mum and dad give her loving space to just feel what she needs to. Then an indie kid called Dylan arrives at her house, terrified to say a mysterious glowing girl has informed him of the death of indie kid Finn. Satchel and Dylan accompany each other platonically. It's very funny. Those are like low-key one of the best parts of this book. But the main characters of this book are not the main characters of the story happening. There are main characters, but they're not the main characters, if that makes sense. And they're just like, please, for the love of fucking God, just do not let them blow up our school before we can graduate. That happened to my older sister like 5 years ago. They just rebuilt the gym. I cannot deal with it. And it's just about these teens. There's the main character, remind me of his name, Mikey, who just wants to graduate and also has a crush on one of the girls in his group. He also has OCD, which I think is represented really well. His sister has an eating disorder. And then one of his best friends is gay and has a bit of a romance. And Mikey himself is probably not straight. He mentions like experimenting with his best friend a couple of times, and like it doesn't seem to like, he's not like into his best friend at all, but like it was more just like to see if he would like it, and like maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. He's a teen. It's just really good. It's, I think, maybe Patrick Ness's most underrated book. I feel like people talk about more than they talk about this one. And this one's just my favorite. I think if you go in, I think some people go into it with the wrong mindset. If you go into it with the mindset of it's a little bit of a parody, but mostly it's just a story about these teens just doing shit, I think you'll really like it. Because as I'm back, not everyone has to be the chosen one. Also, I'm not kidding. The chapter starters with the indie kids is genuinely so funny. And sometimes it'll be like, they'll just be hanging out by the woods, and the indie kid will just come around the forest with like glowing eyes or something. And they're like, oh, this again? It's really good. I have Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Young. I have not read the sequel. Don't come at me. I'm bad at reading. This is set in a fantasy world. Does it have a name? I don't think the world has a name. I never considered how weird that was. But basically it is East Asian inspired fantasy, where there's these different like castes. I never know how to say that word. But basically the main character Lei is part of the paper caste, which is like the lowest caste. And there's this demon king who is like the top caste. What's the top caste called? Steel caste? The moon caste? Okay, here it is. Yes, the moon caste. Where basically you become fully animalistic. But this demon king every year will take 8 young women who he decides will basically be his sex slaves. And Lei becomes the surprising 9th girl after something attracts his attention. And it's kind of about her like rebelling against that, and it's got a lot to do with rape culture, and she also has a forbidden romance with another one of the Kick Girls. And I am very excited to read the second one, even if I haven't yet. Big trigger warnings for sexual assault and everything that entails. We're almost over. One of my all-time favourite books that I truly don't hear anyone talk about, Never Consider Things by Sarah Porter, which currently has an average of 3.05 on Goodreads. People's reaction to this book frustrates me. Okay, realizing I have a thing for fairies, but specifically the fairy books no one else does. Wow. But basically this is about foster siblings, Xenia and Josh, who are left alone for the weekend, and they go out one night and become entangled in the lives of fairies. Josh specifically does, and he kind of drags Xenia into it. And it's about what happens from there. This is a very dark book about abuse and incest, which is not supported. Some people seem to think the book supports it. It doesn't. Like, at all. I think Lexi's character alone proves that. Anyway, people's response to this book really annoys me. But basically, yeah, it's about like learning to love yourself and accepting, like, you know that quote from Postman Wallflower where it's like, we accept the love we think we deserve? A lot of that is in this book. But in this book, Josh is pansexual, and then Xenia has this romance with Lexi, Josh's best friend. Neither of them are given sexualities. But it's basically where sapphic love saves the day, and it's really beautiful. And this is one of my favorite books ever. I think it's very underrated. I wish more people would read it. I wish more people would stop saying it isn't The Cruel Prince, so it's bad. The Cruel Prince ruining this book is like one of humanity's greatest crimes. Read it. Next, we have the Port Louis Witches series by Brooklyn Ray. This is the volume 1, which contains the first 2 novellas. It's a series made of novellas, plus it contains a couple really good short stories, which I would recommend. This is a new adult erotica series about witches in the town of Port Louis and the things that happen. The first book is about Ryder, who is... Ryder? Why am I questioning that? Yeah, who has 2 secrets. One is that he's a necromancer. The other one is that he's in love with his best friend. He is trans and gay, and his best friend is also gay, and spoilers, they do end up together. And every single book is just about queer people falling in love. There's like no straight people in this book, because they're part of a coven, and 2 of the other people in the coven are also queer, and then one of the sisters is queer, and she has a girlfriend, and then there's also a spin-off, which that's my favorite one. It's kind of book 2.5. That one also features a guy who falls in love with like the demon inhabiting his house, and it is wonderful. These are sexy books though, so like keep that in mind. But they're also just really good fantasy in general. Brooklyn Ray is really good. Like, good writer. I love these books. You can get them in ebook, all of them. I'd recommend doing that. Down to the last 2. Magnus Chase series by Rick Riordan. Wow. That is literally like fire. This is a spin-off kind of the Percy Jackson kind of series. It's not as it goes like Percy Jackson, Heroes of Olympus, Trials of Apollo. This, along with the Kane Chronicles, it's more just like a side adventure. Like, in terms of the chronology of the series, this takes place kind of parallel with Trials of Apollo, but you don't need to read any Percy Jackson to get any of this. Like, there are cameos, but like, you know. This is about a homeless kid called Magnus Chase who dies at the start of the book and then is reborn in Valhalla, where he must await this great war. And he discovers who he is the son of, the godly son of. It's fantastic. He's older than most Rick Riordan protagonists tend to be. He's 16 at the start of this, very salty, and with good reason. And it's wonderful. He is queer, his sexuality is not stated, but like it's kind of commonly agreed upon with the fandom that he's probably pansexual. He has a love interest, Alex Fierro, true love of my life, who is gender fluid. Child of Loki, who is also gender fluid in this, which is very wonderful. Like, Loki is the dad of Magnus' best friend Sam, who's a Muslim girl, but then the mother of Alex. And there's a bunch of other queer side characters. Percy Jackson is like, Rick Riordan is very diverse writer in general. But specifically, yeah, the romance in this is so good between Alex and Magnus. It's so good. Spoilers. When they kiss, it like changed my life. This is a really good trilogy. It's like my favorite ever. And finally, Timekeeper Trilogy by Tara Sim. This is set in the 1800s in a world in which clock towers, it's very steampunky, clock towers rule time, and if a clock tower breaks, time stops in that area, basically. Oh, my books just fell. And this is about a prodigal mechanic called Danny, whose father is in a stopped town, and he himself has had his own, like, personal tragedy with clock towers. And he's basically sent on this, like, very small job to this tiny town to just, like, fix, like, a broken hand or whatever, so the town stops running fast. And there he meets this mysterious boy called Colton, and he maybe falls in love with him. And it's really beautiful. And then later in the series, you get sapphic characters, you get trans characters. From in the second and third book, you also get a lot of things about India and imperialism, which is wonderful. This trilogy is done now. It's like one of my favorite trilogies ever. I think it's so good. It just gets better with each and every book. Very soul destroying, but in a good way. And she has a new series called the first one's called Scavenge Stars. I don't know what the series is called, which I have started reading, and it's very good. And the main character is demisexual, and the other main character is bisexual, and they're both Asian. Yeah. Let's see if I can hold all these. This will be an interesting experiment, especially because they're not even staying put on my bed. This video is also over 50 minutes, and I don't have much stuff I can cut, I don't think, so that's fun. All these books are behind me now. Also, if this falls, it may fall. Oh, this is cutting into me. If this falls, it may fall on my laptop, and I think that might be the final straw for it. And I really can't afford to buy a new laptop right now. Look at it. I've still got so many books behind me. And the worst part is they are literally behind me, so like... Oh my god. Jamie, you're a crazy person. These are going to fall. I can already put my chin under them, and I already have a whole goddamn pile here. Good lord. I'm also not spacing these out at all, so like... Oh, I forgot about Cassandra Clare. God damn her for writing such massive books. Still have some novels. Okay. Oh no. Oh no. Fully falling. Fully falling. This is not all of them, either. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. This was a bad idea. Oh my god. I don't know how to get out of this. I think I just have to let all of them fall. Oh my god. I have to put all these away. So in conclusion, read all of these queer books. They're so good. I'll put up on the screen how many there are because I'm not fucking counting them right now. I'll count them later. This number will also include all the ones I recommend at the start. You remember an hour ago when I did a quickfire recommendations? I hope you enjoy this. I hope you found a book you want to read. Recommend me ones that I haven't read. Also, if there's any on my bottom shelves, like my shelves where I haven't read my books, and they're queer and you think I should put them on my list, please tell me. Tell me other ones. Tell me ones you're excited for. Give me all of your queer book recommendations. I can't believe I'm out of breath for doing that. Like, subscribe, all of that. This might have been a mistake. Bye.